Things seem to happen that none of us can explain. Whether it comes to moving into a new house and an energy that seems to be off is troubling you, or from seeing a creature that's not supposed to exist. These subscribers share some of their creepiest and unexplained happenings that they've ever experienced. If you have a story that you'd like to share on this channel, be sure to send it in to the email or the website that you can find in the description down below. I'd love to share your story with everybody here. Let's get into these tales that'll surely keep you up tonight. First off, I'd like to mention that these are experiences I had many years ago, and they were all in dreams, so there's a large chance that not all is remembered, but this is how I remember them happening. Secondly, I'd like to say that the last dream I had in the first story was when I was 9 or 10, and I'm 14 now, so once again, there's a definite portion of this that is true, but I'm not sure what really happened, and what my memory has messed up. Thirdly, these are 3 separate experiences, but I can't help but feel that they're all combined in some way. These dreams started when I was only about 6, and they were normally short, strange scenes of me waking up in my room, and some gruesome monstrous creature, always looking different at the beginning, would either scream, roar, or just completely attack me, and I'd wake up in a cold sweat. As I got older, the dreams got longer, diving more in depth into the story. The first change I remember is sometimes I'd see it get to me, and I'd wake up with a weird pain in my chest. Other times, however, I'd escape it, and before anything else would happen, I'd wake up. Every month or so that this went on, the dreams would get longer, and the monstrous creatures would always get more gruesome and scarier. One time, I ended up escaping the monster and making it to my basement for safety. After the one time this occurred, it would always be me running to the basement for safety. I would run into the laundry room for safety, and my mom would lock the door with me and run inside, but the door wasn't able to hold it. I remember seeing these bloody claws ripping through the thick wooden doors and my mom flipping out, sending me and my sister to hide. After we hid, there'd be a loud scream followed by silence. Every once in a while, it'd find me, and each time the dream occurred, it was like the creature was learning and understanding how I thought because it would occur more often. The gruesome creature would sometimes eat my sister in front of me, only to force me to wake up, and other times it would torture me, waking me up only after it seemed satisfied. These dreams occurred through a 3-year period, happening about 1 time a week, maybe even twice. Sometimes it was down to 1 time a month. The last time I ever had a dream like this, it was the same exact thing, except for this time, when it came to taking either me or my sister, I stood up to it. I remember its beady, red eyes glaring at me, and its smile with sharp, bloody teeth as if it were enjoying this. It was about 7 feet tall and had razor-sharp claws. Its body was fat and covered in matted brown fur. The creature laughed, and to this day is still one of the most sinister things I think I've ever heard. I had terrible anger issues back then, and so I was about to scream my head off at this. I looked it dead in the eyes and screamed at it to go away, and then I woke up. These dreams never occurred again. The strange experience was, when I was a bit older, maybe 10 or 11, I woke up from normal sleep, but I didn't feel awake. I think it might have been sleep paralysis, but I'm not sure, because I've never experienced this since. I felt a cold tap on my hand, and I had a shiver roll down my spine. Wanting to see what tapped my finger, I rolled my head over. I saw an 8-foot-tall shadow crouched over me with long fingers extending. I tried to scream and move, but I couldn't make a noise. I shut my eyes and held them shut, and that's where I think I fell asleep. I don't remember anything after I shut my eyes, so that's where that part ends. The last experience I had was when I was 12. I fell asleep like any ordinary night, but then my dream started. I think it was an out-of-body experience, but I'm not sure. I was standing in my room, but I saw myself in my bed, sleeping. I was confused and looked around my room. There were weird looming shadows, and when I looked back at my body, something was lifting me up. I don't completely remember what it was, but I do remember seeing it carry me over its shoulder into my living room. I followed it, and I saw it throw my body on the couch, and that's when I moved towards myself, only to wake up in the exact spot I had seen myself in my dream. I have no clue how I got there, and what happened during the dream, but these are the 3 scariest things that have ever happened to me. So, a little background info. I'm a 23-year-old female living in Brisbane, Australia. Throughout my life, I have had quite a few experiences with the paranormal, but that's a different story. So now to the experience at hand. So a couple of months back, my boyfriend, mom, and I went to a tour of an old jail that has been closed for some time. Due to animosity, I won't name the jail, but anyone that lives in Brisbane or Queensland would have heard of this place. It was notorious for being one of the most brutal jails in Australia, and people dreaded being sent there due to the stories they had heard. Now, the original set was 3 buildings, Building A, B, and C. Building A has been closed down for a lot longer than the other 2 buildings. It used to be the house for the gallows. There was 42 people sentenced to death here, 39 men, 2 teenagers, and 1 woman. This building was demolished years ago, and there's a lot of research shown. Whether you believe it or not is a different story, but obviously for past reasons I do, that spirits are drawn to familiarity. Or if they died in a horrific way, or have some unfinished business not allowing them to move on. These spirits are drawn to buildings B, being the men's block, and C, being the women's block, as they were extremely similar. Now before we went into the actual jail, I was feeling fine, but the moment I went in, I felt this uneasy feeling of dread come over me. Also, my flashlight kept playing up all night. Yes, this was at night, and as soon as we walked out of the jail, the flashlight worked perfectly. So obviously, we were walking around, exploring this place, and I was taking pictures of everything. I didn't look at these pictures for a couple of days afterwards, but when I did, out of around 40 photos, 2 of them seemed to have what looked like orbs in them. The whole time we were walking around, this feeling of dread continued, and I constantly had the feeling of being watched, and this only intensified when we walked into Building C. The tour guide we were with was telling us about the woman that was hung in the gallows. The group we were with was standing in a kind of circle against the wall of the cell block, but I was standing a little back away from everyone with my boyfriend to my left side and my mom to my right, but both weren't close enough to touch me. So, as we were talking about the day she was hung from the gallows, I suddenly felt as if something was being placed around my neck and I was being restrained. Then, just as we were talking about the floor being dropped from under her, the feeling around my neck got tighter and tighter until I felt like I couldn't breathe anymore and there was nothing that I could do. As soon as we finished talking about her, the feeling of tightness around my neck loosened and I could finally move again. I did check that no one was behind me, and there definitely wasn't any way that somebody could have choked me. My boyfriend and mom weren't even close enough to touch me either. This has never happened to me before or since, and there is no way I can make sense of it. I literally felt like I was being hung from the gallows. Nothing has ever scared me so much in my life before or since. This happened when I was 7, and I was sleeping in my parents' room because I didn't have my own room at the time. My dad was working at the casino down in Laughlin, which was about 30 miles away from my house at the time, in a housing complex where every house looks exactly the same, except with a different colored shackles on the top of the houses. It was around 2:32 in the morning when I woke up to go to the bathroom and get a glass of water before going back to sleep. I spent a while in the bathroom, and since I didn't have a phone at the time, I was playing with my old SpongeBob Knows Your Name doll from around 2001. I was a complete SpongeBob fan, as I had Patrick and Squidward toys in my house's computer room. All my toys were kept in a closet in that room. I finished going to the bathroom and proceeded to go to the kitchen, where my grandfather was asleep and left the television on. I just left it on, as he tends to keep it on 24/7. It seemed a bit tense in the kitchen, but I just ignored it. I poured myself a glass of water from our old water dispenser from when we lived in Tuscan. I went back to my parents' room, and I lay back down after drinking my water. Around 10 minutes passed, and I couldn't fall back to sleep. I looked from my mother's iPad, which I usually just watch YouTubes on until I fall asleep. I found the iPad case, opened it, and it was dead. I put it back where I found it, and just laid there. 2 minutes passed, and I suddenly had the urge to sit up. I followed the urge and sat up, stuck staring in the corner where my parents' lamp is. It turned off randomly, and I saw some sort of black figure. It choked me until I would wake my mother up, who was right next to me on the bed. She got up and I could barely speak, and I was completely out of breath. She grabbed me and ran into the living room where my grandfather was sleeping, and told me to sleep out there for the rest of the night. The next day after that, I was sitting on the couch with my SpongeBob doll and my Woody doll. My Woody doll wouldn't stop going off, so we had to take out the batteries. A few hours after that, the Woody doll went off again, but this time in a much louder manner, to where you could hear it from all the way down the hall from the back of my house. It just said, "Reach for the sky." I grabbed it, checked the batteries after it was done saying the phrase, and the batteries weren't even in there. So it just makes it even more confusing. Not to mention that my SpongeBob dad said, "I'm going to kill you, James," which is my name, but was never programmed into the doll, nor was that phrase. So it just makes it even more creepier. I'm 12 now, and every time I wake up at around 3 a.m., I feel like something is watching me. I was experiencing a lot of weird paranormal stuff. It was really hard for me to get a nice sleep at night. For some reason, I was always hearing noises and seeing shadows inside and outside of my house. My best friend knew that I was going through a tough time, but never showed any fear of anything I would tell him. Sometime, he would spend the night over and we would watch movies. Every now and then, he would notice things around my house and tell me the next day. One night, I had told my best friend and my mom something that was bugging me. I had heard noises coming from outside my bedroom walls, knocks from my window, and footsteps on the roof. But of course, they didn't believe me, telling me it's all in my head, saying that I think about it too much, so I must have heard it in my mind or something. This would piss me off because why would I make something like this up? I told them how much that I would wish that I didn't hear this, so why would I want to? Later on that night, we were all in the kitchen. My friend and I were sitting at the dining table doing some drawings and painting. My mother was listening to her music and cleaning the kitchen. My dad was visiting family in El Salvador at the time, so he wasn't around when this was happening. Anyways, as the night gets later, it's around 2 a.m., and we all hear a loud bang coming from outside the kitchen door. This is an exit door that's on the side of the house that leads to the backyard. Once we all heard that loud bang, we looked at each other like, what was that? My friend looks at me, saying, whoa. I could see that they got spooked as I looked back at them with a sinister smile. I didn't mean to smile at them like that, but after all that happened, it was all in my head. It got me excited that my wish was about to come true, that they are about to hear what goes down, and that I'm not the only one experiencing this anymore. I tell my mom to go open that door and see if it's all in her head. My friend is looking at the window that was wide open behind me. I think there's someone outside, he said. It's nothing, I replied. I always had this sense of feeling when something was there. I knew no one was outside, but there was something out there. Then we hear the scratching along the walls going on in the backyard. Again, my mom and my best friend was shocked. I told her, I told you so, but she wouldn't believe me. Now the only thing left is the footsteps on the roof. Maybe it's a raccoon, my friend said. I hope we get to hear the footsteps on the roof, then tell me that's a raccoon. My mom was amazed on how she got to hear all of this. I always told her what I would hear at night, but she never believed me. 15 minutes goes by, and there it was, the footsteps on the roof. The look my mom and my friend gave me was priceless. Now tell me that's a raccoon, I said. My friend said, hell nah, that's someone walking on your roof. My mom says it to my friend, you're staying over tonight. I don't think it's a good idea to go home this late. Especially with all that's going on. Suddenly, the noises started coming from my room. We all got up and rushed to my bedroom, this time thinking maybe it is someone trying to break in. We checked my room, and the window was shut closed. For the first time, I noticed something different, something I never thought was true. I had heard some people tell me that there's got to be some spirit or ghost attached to something. To get rid of the spirit, I need to find what that object is. Well, that night, I saw a shadow move out of the hallway and into a coconut monkey. It was a souvenir that my dad once gave me from El Salvador. The next day, I was too tired to go to school. I told my mom what I had seen, and she suggested that I should destroy it. Later that day, my friend came to my house again. I told him what I had seen and what I needed to do. He was all for it, so I grabbed a hammer and took it outside and destroyed it. My friend was tripping out on how this can be the reason why this was all happening. I hope this is it, and I hope this works. I slammed it into the ground and smashed it with my hammer, and that was the end of it. Days later, my mom noticed that I was sleeping better and the night was more peaceful. My friend still comes over and spends the night. Everything was normal. About 1 month later, my dad comes back from El Salvador and tells me that he brought me another souvenir. I opened it and I can't believe what I saw. Another freaking coconut monkey. Before I get into my experience, I should preface it with a few facts. I'm a biologist, and as such, I place a lot of weight of evidence and try to ignore eyewitness accounts and anecdotal experiences. To me, the word paranormal is a misnomer. There are simply things we don't understand yet. I also have to admit that I use cannabis frequently, but not for fun. It's at the direction of my physician. As such, I don't really use any strains that are strong enough to affect me in any other way than relieving pain and allowing me to fall asleep. I've been doing it for 2 years now, and I've never had an experience like I did 2 nights ago. We live in Southern California, and we recently moved to a beach city. Our new home is being remodeled so we're staying in another home my family owns temporarily. My family only purchased this home a month back, and they haven't moved in or began to work on it yet. From the very outset, the house oozed with darkness and straight out weird floor plans that get you lost, doors to nowhere, a secret entrance to the garage, and a bonus room that is only 10 feet by 10 feet, has a skylight and 2 padlocks. I decided to lock that room and never go in it again, since it's going to be demolished soon anyway. There were mirrors everywhere, and it creeped the hell out of my wife. They looked like the mirrors from that horror film Oculus, but much smaller, and there were as many as 10. I removed those from the garage, except for the largest one, which was bolted onto the wall. I had no tools with me at the time. Once we got settled, I started to check the bedrooms out, and only got creepier from there. 2 of the bedrooms had windows, but these windows didn't go outside. They were one-way mirrors into other rooms in the house, including that creepy 10 by 10 room. I decided not to tell my wife about those 2 bedrooms and suggested that we put our air mattress in the living room. She didn't question this, as our furniture was in storage and there was no furniture in the home. She just assumed I wanted to watch the large television that was in that room. We went to sleep just fine that night. Actually, being thrilled that we moved in and had an ocean view, I pushed the creepiness out of my mind as the stress from the move. I dismissed the house's odd design and chalked it up to the original owners, who built the home in 1966, just being really bad at DIY, and that was lying to myself, to be honest. I woke up the next morning, and that's when things started to get bad. As I walked down the hallway, the large mirror caught my attention. I looked at the top of the name of the past owners that were carved into the mirror. It wrote, "Enjoy your new home, from Mr. and Mrs. We can call them Pizza." I'm not being derogatory or funny, but it's the first thing that comes to my mind about the previous owners, and something I probably should have mentioned before, because they had about 4 industrial-sized pizza ovens in the house. This was odd, because I was told they were hermits. Anyway, back to the mirror. I tried to get it down without tools for at least 10 minutes the day before. This carving was not there, but I ignored it and told myself I was just stressed and it must have been there the day before and I just didn't see it. But something in my stomach just told me that it wasn't. I decided we needed to get out of the house. It was sunny and we're 6 blocks from the beach. We didn't move to a beach city to sit inside all day anyway. We decided to put our new puppy in one of the bedrooms, as he's old enough to be on his own, but I wasn't ready to give him free reign of a new house, as huskies are known to be escape artists. We went out and had a good time. When I came back, I heard my puppy crying. I ran to the bedroom to let him out, but it was locked. From the inside, I could hear whispering, but not enough to make it out. "Screw this," I said, and kicked the door in. I didn't care since it was getting replaced anyway. I barged in and it was pitch black. It shouldn't have been, because I play a TV in the background with nature noises to calm the dog down while we aren't home. I turned on the light and there was no one there. Not even my dog. I began to panic when I heard him crying again, but it was in another room. Not the one I put him in, and he certainly didn't do this on his own. I found him locked in that creepy 10 by 10 room. I let him out, assuming someone was screwing with us, and changed all the locks. I went to sit on the air mattress in distress. I tried to get some Guilty Pleasure TV to make me feel better. I couldn't leave the house as there was a technician on the way to install Wi-Fi, which we desperately needed, as there are times in this city where you can't even get a weak signal. The installation appointment window came and passed. I'm patient, so I waited another hour and a half before calling the company. By this time it was dark outside and they told me that there was an unforeseen issue and that they couldn't install it today and they would be there first thing in the morning, which I guess was fine. The night came and we fell asleep until about 3 a.m. when I heard a loud, rumbling growl. It's the only way I can really explain it, but not like you'd hear from a dog. Being a typically overcrowded beach city, there wasn't really any wildlife except for what's in the ocean. Next I heard a shattering noise. Yep, it was in the 10 by 10 room again. I went ready to finally fight the person who was screwing with us. I went into the room and of course there was no one there. I looked at my one-way mirror that went to the next bedroom. From the side you could see your reflection, but it was mostly shattered. I went to inspect it and there was a bullet hole. There was an exit bullet too. I'm sure of it because I've grown up with firearms my entire life since my dad is a cop. I don't think anyone else heard it. Also, it's also odd because the land is premium here. Our neighbors are less than 20 feet away. There was nothing I could do but lock the doors again and go back to sleep. Not telling my wife what I saw, trying to push it out of my head altogether. The morning came and the internet service technician was there. I opened the door and he absolutely looked terrified and seemed like he didn't want to come in. When he saw me, he instantly relaxed and smiled like we were brothers who hadn't seen each other in years. He said he was happy to see me, assuming he was just being polite, so he got a good customer service response on those surveys they always ask you to take. But he continued at how relieved he was to see a normal person at this home. So, being curious, I quizzed him. He told me that most of the people in the neighborhood were afraid of this home. He told me that the neighborhood was initially settled by Italian immigrants, and the previous owners fit into that group. He told me that the woman who lived here was regarded as a practitioner of Stragaria. I had never heard of this before, but he told me it was an ancient form of mysticism rooted in Catholic roots. The closest English definition would be witchcraft. Being the cynical biologist that I was, I laughed, thanked him for coming, and he left. I went into one of the spare bedrooms because we left our luggage in there, and I didn't think it was necessary to move it. As I was, and am still skeptical for the most part. I only say most part because of what happened next. The closet door in the room was open, and it was an extremely heavy wooden sliding door that no one in the house would have had the strength to move other than me. There was a box of photos in there, and stupidly, I decided to look. Almost all of them were of the previous owner and her dog. She doesn't look so creepy to me, I thought. Time came for bed, and I was pretty stressed, so I went outside to smoke a little pot so I could chill out and fall asleep. The marine layer had rolled in and visibility was only 10 feet. It was also about 59 degrees. To some that might not be very cold, but we're spoiled here and it's enough to make all tourist and beachgoers stay home. I sat outside and started getting my things ready to smoke. My wife came outside and we talked. It was extremely barren outside. There were no cars or people on the street and it was almost completely silent, except for the sound of a barking dog almost 2 blocks away. My wife went inside, and I went back to the edge of the yard where I smoke, so it doesn't go to the neighbor's window. In this section of the yard, I would perch on the ledge which normally would give you a beautiful view of the harbor lights, but not tonight with the fog. Oh well, I thought. It was about to light up when an extremely frail Caucasian woman that looked elderly came from around the corner. She was walking a dog, the dog I had seen in those photos from the box in the room. Lots of people like small dogs, I thought. In this part of town, they were almost an accessory. She walked by extremely slow, deliberately, slower than she would be for a normal person even her age. She walked past me and stopped at the neighbor's driveway, faced away looking at the harbor, which again was odd because you could see nothing. She did this for maybe 10 minutes. I assumed she hadn't noticed me. She began turning her head back and forth quickly in an unnatural jerking motion, as if she was paranoid about being attacked at any moment. I once more did something incredibly stupid. Jumping down from my perch, I said, "Hello, ma'am. Do you need help? Can I help you? Do you need help going inside or something where it's warm?" She said nothing but jerked her head once more, finally fixating on me. Her face was extremely grimaced like she was angry. Not just normally angry, but ready to fight angry. I started to walk closer towards her, as I couldn't really make her face out. I had no fear. I'm 185 centimeters tall and weigh about 112 kilograms. She looked to be about 140 centimeters at most and definitely no more than 45 kilograms if that. She took a step towards me as well and came into view. I was immediately terrified, and my heart rate was higher than it ever had been in my life. I felt like I just did hard cardio exercise. It was the woman from the photos. She was pale, paler than normal. She smelled like rotting flesh. She was soaking wet, but the worst part of it was her blood red eyes. They were nightmarish. I still have nightmares about them to this day. They were not just like pupils, but her entire eye was red. I screamed like a small child and jumped back, taking a defensive posture, ready to fight till the end. She then smiled and took a step back, fading into thin air. I decided I didn't need to sleep that night, as I was pretty terrified and didn't want to smoke that joint anymore. I called my mother the next morning and told her she needed to move up the demolition date of the house. I'm not sure if that will be the end of it. I don't have a concrete answer for my experiences either. Rational or not, my peace of mind is worth more. So we'll be staying at an extended stay hotel until our place is ready. Till this day, I can't explain what is happening inside that house. Now these were some terrifying tales that just quite can't be explained. If you have a tale that can't be explained that you'd like to share on the show, be sure to send it in to the email or the website that you can find in the description down below. If you enjoyed these stories, be sure to hit that like button as it helps this video reach more people. If you're new to the channel, hit the subscribe button and turn on notifications, as I upload videos like this almost every single day. If you guys would like to help the channel and support more than just watching, check out the merch link in the top of the description. I have plenty of cool designs that you might like to wear. Plus, if you have a shirt and you have a picture, I'd love to share it in some future videos, so send in your pictures. See you guys soon with another creepy video.